Hi folks, I hope you can hear me fine with this new camera and the fact that I have a mask on. I'm heading into a mask required zone today. But you know, as an American that's been living in Germany since 2001, one thing I love most here is the history that this country possesses and how one can today still find traces from so long ago. If you're new here, welcome. I babble about a variety of things on my channel. I recommend checking out my playlists, and if I make you curious, consider subscribing and ringing the bell. To my returning viewers and subscribers, welcome back, baby. I always look forward to your comments and opinions and fun facts, but I'm really looking forward to it today. Any fun facts on this are helpful. All details I could research are fuzzy at best. And you know, I gotta say, much love and a big shout out to members. People who clicked that join button are more badass than the Christian warriors who once killed, taxed, pillaged all across these lands in the name of their almighty God and empire. I'm just saying, that's a fact. So this is the Abtei Mönchengladbach. If you follow Call Me Armstrong on Instagram, you'll see I often post pictures. I've been impressed with this structure since I moved here, and it's made me very curious. And now let's try a new feature I want to bring to the channel. There I am. Right. So what you see up here was built somewhere around 974, I believe. If you listen to the church, the story goes that it was around 972 when Archbishop Giro from Cologne just happened to be passing through this area with a monk at his side named Sandrad, when they claimed to have come upon an uncultivated hill, and atop this uncultivated hill was a dense forest. And so the church legend goes that when Archbishop Giro and his monk friend Sandrad heard this mysterious ringing up on this hill, they followed the sound. They followed the sound up the hill into the forest, and they claimed to have found a hollowed stone full of relics. They found relics of various ancient saints. Saints like Saint Vitus. And these relics were supposedly from the Balderich Kirche, or the Balderich Church, which supposedly first stood here on this site. And it is said that this Balderich Church, this Balderich Kirche, is from somewhere around like the year 800. I mean, I was already impressed with this 974. 800, I needed to know more. And so as the story goes, as the church tells it, you know, the Archbishop Giro and his monk clearly saw this mysterious ringing in this dense forest, the hollowed stone full of relics. Clearly, this was a divine sign from God. And they decided they needed to not just build a church here, but also a monastery. You see, building monasteries were kind of popular at that time, and they would say this was a perfect location because surrounded by nature. But I would say located on top of a hill is a strategic location to lord over pagans below. Just saying. And well, the land below this beautiful structure up there is nowadays a beautiful park, a little pond. This area is known as the Giroweir, after that archbishop. Over there is a Hitta Strasse, or Hitta Street. We'll get to Hitta in just a moment. It is really pretty here. And I like that there's lots of geese and ducks often here, and there's even a bush full of rats on the other side of that pond. Fun facts. I like coming around to this area because I like the history. You see this old wall here? It's like from the 1500s, I believe. Yeah. History. So, my mind was blown when I found out that old structure up there on that mountain is not even the original church. That there was originally a Balderich church, Balderich Kirche, somewhere around the year 800. I mean, my mind was just blown, and it got my mind going crazy with questions. Like, what was life like back then? I started, thinking about this town. How old is it? Who really founded it? So, like a crazy lady, I started to research it. And boy, it took me down a rabbit hole. Back to the time of Charlemagne and Emperor Otto the First. Through the dark and cold Middle Ages, where Christianity wreaked havoc, if I may say so, on simple pagan folk. Wars were just constantly waged in the name of gods, kings, empires. And much like this street, my research led me to this guy, Graf Balderich. Legendary founder of Mönchengladbach. I say legendary because, man, seriously, the details on this guy fuzzy at best, dates don't match and such. To try not to fall over. So, Balderich. So, legend has it that a Balderich and his wife Hitta did indeed build a church up here in the late 700s. And supposedly, when that archbishop from Cologne and his little monk buddy came across this hill, there were people at the base of the hill that greeted them, because of course there were people living here. And they spoke of the church that used to be up there, of which the ruins were still there in 974. But I think these people at the base of the mountains, the ones living off the land, not a mysterious ringing. Those folks told this archbishop about that old church. And supposedly that church was destroyed around 954 by some nefarious Hungarians. Side note, if I ever start a punk band, I'm going to call it the Nefarious Hungarians. And if you want to be a part of it, let me know in the comment and what instrument you play. Rumor also has it that this Balderich character that originally built this church up on this hill in the 800s and something, rumor has it he was originally from Utrecht. So, are these people really Dutch here in Mönchengladbach? It should be said that in the beginning of the 20th century, there was a historian named Ernst Brasse, and he referred to dear Balderich, or this dear Balderich character, as merely a literary creation. It appears there is some real question into this city Mönchengladbach's founder and who he is. But as I already stated, I went down a rabbit hole on this one. And here's some more stuff I found out about old Baldy. Right, so there was in fact a Graf Balderich who was known as a great figure in Charlemagne's empire and as one of the empire's noblemen. There was. And there are a variety of official entries on official government religious paperwork from around the years 805 to 821. Right, government religious, it was pretty much the same thing at that point. But there is documentation of a Graf Balderich character, possibly hailing from Utrecht, Possibly the same guy that settled this town. Possibly. There's a document that even shows a Balderich delivering an organ to a church in Aachen, which is not far from here. So I'm saying, like, this Balderich character, he was in this area and affiliated with the church, according to my research. But honestly, as I researched further, I was a little surprised how many people at this period in time were actually named Balderich. Seriously, I had no clue that Balderich was such a common name, and at that time, yeah, it can be found a lot in this region and affiliated with the church, so the mystery continues. But this Graf Balderich, right, this he was known as Balderich from Friel, and he became Markgraf von Friel around 819. Are you all still with me? Now, even though he was a Markgraf of Friel, Friel is a region of Italian, I think it's near Austria and Slovakia. This guy was indeed all up and down this area that I live in back then, yeah, fighting for his god and his empire. But is he the founder of Mönchengladbach? Is he the founder of Mönchengladbach? Is the guy in the statue the founder of Mönchengladbach? Is the guy in the statue the founder of Mönchengladbach the same Balderich? I don't know. But as I researched all of this, I have to say this was all just really interesting to me. And I think I have a right, as much as anybody else, to theorize about the legend of the founding of Mönchengladbach. I keep thinking about this little tale the church tells, you know, and they talk about Archbishop Giro and his monk friend coming through this countryside behind me and looking up at this hill and the mysterious ringing that guided them to a hollowed stone which had relics in it. You know, because then they can use this sign from God, this divine sign from God, as a reason to essentially steal this land and lord over the people below and, yeah, shove their religion down their throat. Because in those days and age, you couldn't question God. You just couldn't, not if you wanted to keep your head. Yeah, okay, Giro, God led you to the spot. I think it is much more likely that there were people at the base of this hill that knew all about those relics that were up there. Possibly mentioned the original people, Balderich and his wife Hitta, that had run or maybe maintained or maybe even built the original church in 800 and something up there. It is documented that in 793, there were indeed skull and bone fragments at that site up there. It was being used for some sort of worship. There's also documentation that mentions skulls and bone fragments and these relics being laid out in this Balderich church ruins. That's a little bit of a different story than hearing a ringing and finding a hollowed stone with relics of Saint Vitus. Don't you think, church? I can't stop thinking about those ruins. I mean, were they seeing the ruins of people massacred by these nefarious Hungarians? Or were they seeing possibly ruins of maybe, this is just a maybe, this is just an Armstrong theory. Were there possibly originally ruins of some pagan faith upon this hill close to nature? And as was in style back in those times, crusades and such got stomped and destroyed by some nefarious Christians? Maybe. Do you know, the winner writes history. It's clear to see who won. I keep going back to those folks at the base of this hill. I imagine they lived in some really difficult times, living off the land, just trying to keep their family alive. And like every so often, these poor pagan folks, just like every so often, some rich and fancy religious people come riding through on horseback, wreaking havoc and starting wars in an attempt to shove their religion down their throats, while systematically destroying ancient pagan cultures that we will never know everything about anymore. It's been erased. The winner writes history. What about that sculpture? That sculpture of Balderich was made in 1913 by a sculptor named Emil Holweg. And because there are no pictures of this mysterious Balderich, he used his brother Roland as a model. sum this all up, God, how do I sum this all up? I mean, my brain took a really weird ride when I decided to research who founded Mönchengladbach. And I still feel like I don't have any straight answers. And even the historians themselves admit that, you know, some details are fuzzy and questionable at best. In my humble opinion, I think the founders were there the whole time. They were the people at the base of that mountain. I just can't accept that the founders of this town was like one elite Christian organization. That's not how communities work, you know? The people work together and form villages, and they work the land, and they build them into small towns. Quite honestly, in my opinion, that park, that Giro Park, named after the Archbishop from Cologne, I think that park should be named after the original folks of Mönchengladbach. The original, I don't know, call it like pagan folk founder park. But don't, I just, you know, everything named after the people that caused a lot of wars and murders and erased the original people, essentially. Another case of winner writes history. But yeah, I think the founders of Mönchengladbach were the original folks. The ones that Archbishop Giro found at the base of that mountain. And I bet some of their ancestors are still here today. Maybe they're my neighbors. I do hope you enjoyed watching this video and listening to this weird little tale I decided to tell. Please don't forget to click like if you did enjoy it. I hope to be coming at you again very soon with another video, but until then, I do hope that you're taking care of yourself.